Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to ZTV Live. I'm Susan Mulligan Fleischman. Today is Tuesday, February 9th, and it's great to have you here. And excuse my numb face. I'm in Novocaine. Effects are still here, so I'm not giving a wry smile to everything that's going on tonight. So thanks for being here. It's Reading, Writing, and Ralph with our favorite literary editor, Ralph Peluso. Hey, Ralph, welcome back.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's good to see you, and it looks like you're in a different space tonight.
Yes, I am. I am in the Zebra Studios in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm winding down on a 3-week vacation where I've been in Florida and Georgia, and now on my way back to home in Delaware. So it's been a long 3 weeks, but I'm glad I can do this. It's great that it's remote, and we have two wonderful young authors tonight that have written a children's book, which I think is going to be a little bit eye-opening for most of our audience and very important, and how to rear kids in the future.
Great.
So,
well, let me bring them on the screen. Diana and Courtney, welcome to ZTV Live.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. So excited.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to the conversation, and I'm going to leave it to you three and take my numb mouth off.
Okay. Bye, Susan. See you in a little bit. Hi, Courtney. Hi, Diana. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Ralph?
Great. And as I was telling Susan, I'm at a dear old friend's home in Lexington, South Carolina, which is a suburb of Columbia. And we've known each other since our childhood days, and we played football for 5 years in the New York area leagues. And we have much the same background. We were both educated in Catholic schools, went to high schools in the New York area. He went to Power, I went to Cardinal Hayes. They were rivals, and similar colleges and similar families and all of that. And just a wonderful individual, John Siebert. And I thought it would be good to bring up the point that when we played football together, it was in the era where coaches were very tough on the young men and boys that were playing. And we were told, it's men and boys. That's how you grow up. That's how you become a man. You give it your hardest. You do your best. You endure the pain. And then you grow up, you have a family, and you take care of them. Mm-hmm. And I read one of the first pains in your book about Claude, whose aspiration was to become a stay-at-home dad. And at that point, you had me in the book, because I realized there's a whole new way and a whole new world out there when you're looking at kids, and whether they're boys or girls or anything else, and different way of looking at life and what they want to be. Maybe it would have changed some of the way we grew up. But anyway, enough of that. We'll get back to Claude in a little bit. So I want each of you to tell our viewers about you guys, what you do, what you've done for a living, how you're educated, and why you started writing children's books.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'll
Diana,
let you go ahead
start.
first, Diana.
Yeah. Go ahead, Diana.
Okay. Sure. I'm happy to start us off. So I'm Dr. Diana Karczmarczyk. I've got a lot of letters behind my last name. Basically, I'm a master's level public health professional. I'm a master's certified health education specialist with a doctorate degree in education. I currently work in public health, and I'm an adjunct at a local university. And, a couple of years ago when I was an adjunct, I had an amazing student in my class by the name of Courtney Gonzalez, who, approached me and said, "Hey, can you help me get this research article published?" And I was absolutely enthralled with the idea because it was something that I had taught her. And I said, "You got it. Let's do this." And from there blossomed this amazing relationship where I will punt it over to Courtney, and she'll tell you the rest of the story about how we got to be where we are today and the journey that she's had in her amazing career so far.
Sure.
Great,
So
great.
I, again, am Courtney Gonzalez. I received my master's in public health, similar to Diana. I just graduated. I'm a part of the COVID graduation group of spring 2020, so a whole new life. I'm also a certified health education specialist. And as Diana said, I was a student of hers, and we started doing our work together on an article based off of some information I learned in her class and cumulative of my community health background. And in embarking on that journey together, we started just kind of talking about life and, things that were of interest. And, one day we got to, things that are said to our nieces and nephews and little cousins and the messages that they are shared every day. And, I think we got a little pumped up about some of those topics, sort of like what you shared. And we just thought, this is not what we should be teaching the kids today. They really need to just embrace life around them so they can be the best version of themselves instead of us trying to mold them into something that they are not. And I mean, I think the rest is history. We have just kind of formed that bond, and, each project brings on ideas and new topics for another project, whether it's related to our children's books or, some of the things that I think we'll probably touch on during this show. And outside of my educational background, I also work in the pediatric emergency room, so tied to COVID
Wow.
all the way around.
So you guys are pretty busy. And,
we are busy.
and you took on a challenge that is big and yet will be changed both subtly and with a hammer. So where you're trying to break down stereotypical thinking and norms as it relates to child rearing, right? And which is the way I interpreted the work. I'm going to start as we do every week, we're going to have 3 trivia questions tonight with a little bit of twist. They're going to be multiple choice based. So the audience out there, you're going to have to listen a little bit, but you can always guess like you did in high school and say A, B, C, or D, right? But I'm going to start you off. I'm going to start the audience off with a warm up. I've done this once before. It's not for a prize. It's just to get everybody engaged and everybody thinking. So the first trivia question is, in J.M. Barrie's original Peter Pan novel, who was the protagonist? And the first correct answer in, Susan will let us know and we'll put the names on the air. So let's talk about inspiration for this book. I mean, it's not massive by way of pages, but it is deep by way of thinking. So where did the inspirations come from to attack these topics in this way?
I mean, I think we can go back to the journal article at the beginning, right? So we were writing about education, and we were talking about how education influences us from a health perspective. And we care a lot about the different parts of health, whether it's our physical health or our mental health. And at the time, Courtney had, shared some things about the important children in her life. And so I'll punt it over to Courtney, and then we'll share a little bit about like some of the homework that we did in order to get us ready for this, because This is the first time that we ever actually did this. So Courtney, do you want to talk a little bit more about who the book is really dedicated to?
Sure. So we ended up dedicating our first book to my nephew Sunti and my little cousin Harley. And I think just based off of their age, because I do have some older sets of cousins who probably grew up in the same time as me, and messaging still wasn't really there the way it is for Harley and Sunti. And so Harley and Sunti come and spend the summers with my family. One lives in El Paso, Texas, and the other one in Aurora, Colorado. So definitely different parts of the world or United States when they come over. And a lot of the messaging that my nephew got was, boys can play with boy toys, but girls can play with both boy and girl toys. And I was just very perplexed at why females can play with both, but boys have to be restricted to one. I thought, that was very interesting. And then, for Harley, she's, the go-getter, the rough and tough, not your typical girly girl, if you will. And so hers is constantly, wear your hair down, wear pink, why don't you want to play with Barbie dolls? And that's just not who she is. And, people are constantly telling both of them to, do and be and explore the world in very different ways. And so I was just a little, like I said, infuriated and powered up by those things. And I think the more Diana and I talked about it and we really got into that health messaging piece and what we know about, suicide rates and our youth today, I mean, they are really just going up, and we wanted to try and tackle that in a different way.
Right. I can relate some of this back to my era of growing up. So as a boy, if I picked up and started playing with a doll, you're either going to get met with extreme sarcasm or the back of the hand, right? So changing that early on is quite a task, right? So
and some of it, you're using the doll example, and one of the things that I always think about is we don't buy little boys kitchen toys, right? Girls are meant to be in the kitchen. But what is a man supposed to do before that woman, if that's where they are going to go in life? How are they supposed to sustain their own life? Because we have kept them from just basic fundamentals, such as being able to feed yourself. We don't even start them off young playing with some of those toys. And I think those are a lot of the things that we have thought about when we thought about the different things that we're trying to break, because there are just so many different pieces of messaging that really affect us for the rest of our life.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think if as a young man, if I went on my own before I had a wife, there was no playbook to how do you boil water, right? It just didn't exist. We were just expected to know it, whether we knew how to turn the stove on or not. So you're right. There's a part preparing for life without a mate, or the other is if the woman, like I have a daughter that is very successful, and the roles are can be a little bit reversed. So, and again, if the boy's not prepared for that, then where does that leave him? Like, I guess with a lot of feelings of anxiety, right?
Yes.
And maybe a sense of failure because they were taught differently.
So the other thing is that both of us are trained in this public health background, and one of the things that we know from science is that we all tend to have a really good sense of our identity at a very young age. We're talking 3-4 years old. And so when we were thinking about where can we insert messages, like where can we start really giving a powerful message about being you is great. Everything about you is great. Be everything you want to be. Is really how we pick that age range from 4 to 6 for our book, because that is really a time to start really embracing folks and letting them know that we love you just with all the beautiful things that come with you, so that by the time a person is a teenager, right, then when they are really having conflicts about becoming the person that they are and feeling good about that, they come with a strong message, and that hopefully things like suicide ultimately is not something that someone has to struggle with.
Right, I agree. Let's check in real quick with Susan and see if we have a winner on the first trivia question.
We do have a winner. It took a little while, but and of course they came in just about at the same time. But Nancy Campbell-Gorski and Marilyn Kopash both guessed Peter Pan.
Correct. That is the correct answer. We would have also taken no one, but it is Peter Pan. That's actually correct.
Congratulations, ladies. Thank you for playing.
Now stay engaged, because the next ones are for the prizes. Captain Hook wasn't introduced until it was made into a theatrical play, believe it or not. And so let's give the first one for prize, the second trivia question. So, and this is multiple choice. So the question is, in 2018, how many children's books were published in the United States that featured children of color? And the The multiple choice answers are 1 in 100, 1 in 10, 1 in 5, or 1 in 2. So again, A, 1 in 100, B, 1 in 10, C, 1 in 5, or D, 1 in 2. And we're going to take the first correct answer. You get one pick. So if you don't know it, just take a guess. So let's talk about the first pain I brought up, Claude and Harley. And the first question I had is, after seeing those pains, is was there a science to how you grouped the pairs of children together?
So we did a lot of mapping. I definitely am sure somewhere in all of our book gatherings have that science there. I mean, from the way we group the children to picking their names, we tried to make sure we kind of spread it out through the alphabet. We wanted them to match, kind of a cultural or ethnic identity that they had. So some of it was based off of, some of the things they wanted to be. We didn't want them, not that I think any of them really have too similar of aspirations or things that they enjoy per se, but we definitely tried to make sure there was a mixture of it, to blend them together, and then also just highlighting kids. So one was just making a pattern of the book that made sense and that could flow, and then also really trying to just highlight different key pieces that we really thought about when it came to the character development.
Right. Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about the interaction between Claude and Harley. What did you see there in their dialogue? And then I'll get to you can talk about the punchline, but I'll get to the punchline. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to take that one away, Diana, if you want me to.
Start off with Claude, and Claude is someone who's introduced as the first character in the story, and the line says, Claude loves to sing, and he wants to be a stay-at-home dad when he grows up. And Harley likes reading comic books, and she wants to be a soldier when she grows up. So, I mean, even if we just look at the, like from a really early, you open up the book, you kind of know right away exactly what we're trying to say. We are trying to break some stereotypes. And to be totally honest with you, I feel like when people open up the book and they read the line of Claude, we've definitely gotten some verbal, okay, this is the kind of book that this is going to be. But we're really proud of that because we wanted to be able to put that out there right up front and just to let people know we are encouraging you to be whatever you want to be, because really that is great. And to encourage someone who may stereotypically be thought of as the breadwinner in the family, encouraging them to stay at home and raise children and maybe prepare the meals and do the laundry. And then Harley, while liking to read comic books, doesn't necessarily predict that someone's going to then want to be a soldier when they grow up. But we also wanted to offer different elements of people, right? Like you can you can love to sing, and you can still want to be a stay-at-home dad.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of interesting because the reactions that you got, I imagine, were across the board, and my visceral reaction was, "What's wrong with that? Nothing." Right.
That's right.
So, and it's kind of like, I've seen throughout my career, and I was in business for well over 45 years, and I've seen been around very successful women. And I don't know if their husbands are stay-at-home dads or not, but what's wrong with that? If a woman wants to have a career, I'm okay with the partner staying at home and taking care of things. It's not easy, particularly if they choose to have children or adopt children or foster children. Right.
Exactly. And I think that's the other part of the reaction too, right? Is that when people do see that right away, they know that this is a book that's going to really be an opportunity to have some open conversations about what would you want to be when you grow up? When we're children, I mean, Courtney and I, we can go back to our childhood days and think about all the multitude of careers that we wanted to have. I remember one time I distinctly wanted to be a waitress because I saw Waitress on TV and I thought that was the coolest job ever. But why not? Like, why not support me in that? That might change, and these children might change their goals and their dreams, and that's okay too. But to start off the conversation this way, I think a lot of people know the good in that can happen. And I think even before we even get to Claude, honestly, Ralph, I think that some people come to us when we're at outdoor events or we've been able to interact with the people that read our book, and they see our front cover and they see the diversity, the physical diversity that we can see, the things about us that physically make us beautiful and individual, and that we celebrate that in a happy way of the children embracing each other. I mean, really, children get glued to the image, but we've had adults walk up to us and say, "What is this? Tell me more about this. What are you doing?"
I mean, specifically at one event, we literally had a guy who if I recall properly, Diana, I don't think had any real kids in his life. I don't think had any intention on buying a children's book that day. And I swear, I think stared at our book for a good 5 to 8 minutes and then was like, I'm just going to look through this. I don't have anybody in my life, but I just want to look through this because I've never seen a children's book cover that just has a whole bunch of different children from different backgrounds that you can tell right when you look at the cover embracing one another. And he ended up walking away buying a book.
I tell you, it's almost, to me, it's almost a great Christmas present for potential parents, friends who have grandchildren. It was so hard hitting. And then the second thing that struck me, and I know we're going to spend a lot of time with Claude and Harley, and that's okay. The second thing that struck me is the transition from the first illustration with them together to the second. Mm-hmm. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Go ahead. I think what we thought about in the development of the book for people, because we didn't share every page, is the general layout is it's either 2 children or 1 child and their interest, and then typically with the 2 children it's something that they enjoy doing together. So the whole point of all of this is, 1, we want you to explore the world around you, do the things that you enjoy, and also know that you can still find common interests with other. And that's a theme, whether we're talking about Claude and Harley or any of the other duos, or even just some of the single kids. That is the whole point of the book, is that we all have our own individual message or ideas or things that we like to do or want to be, and we can still find one thing that connects us with somebody else. And so that is kind of how we tried to transition between the individual pieces to the connected pieces.
Yeah, I think it's fabulous. You can take as much away from this book as you want, or as little. It's going to depend on the reader, of course. Let's check in with Susan and see if we have a winner.
We do have a winner. Congratulations, Wayne Houlihan from our Zebra family came in, and the correct answer is sadly 1 in 5, which is not that many that year. But Wayne, send us let me know your email address. Your physical address. We'll send you a book. Congratulations, and thanks everybody for playing. In fact, everybody guessed the right answer. Right after Wayne did, Marilyn did, Nancy did, and Michelle D'Amato also did. So.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Watch out for that Michelle D'Amato. She's sneaky. So since we have 2 more questions and they're both multiple choice, we'll get right into the third question, and then we'll chat. I'd like to chat about Sumti a little bit, since he is your nephew.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And pronounced Sunti.
Okay. And again, yeah, Sunti?
Sunti. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And again, the winners tonight will get an autographed copy of It's Great to Be You and It's Great to Be Loved. Is that the first one? Mm-hmm. So the question is, one of the characters in the book's name is K.O. or Kiko.
Keiko.
The name Kiko, what does the name Kiko mean? A, fun child. B, happy child. C, sad child. Or D, smart child. Again, Keiko, what is the meaning of Keiko? A, fun child. B, happy child. C, sad child, or D, smart child? First winner in with the correct answer gets the autographed copies of the books. So let's talk about Sunti, right? And that pay. So you have him spending time with his grandmother, and you transition that into he's going to be a fashion designer when he grows up.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about that one.
So we did have to take a little bit of creative freedom just in how we tried to space out the characters again and the different interests that we wanted each one to have. So if you ask him, I think his answer is still he would like to be a teacher because he wants to eat the birthday treats that children bring into the class. That's his aspiration right now, and that's the big win of the day.
He, by the way?
He is 11 now.
Okay.
I think he just turned 11, or I think he'll be turning 11 this May. So it's been teacher for a while. Maybe COVID, changes that a little bit since they've been out of the classroom. But if you ask him, that's why. So again, it's a little bit of that liberty of, just one, having fun with the characters, and then again just exploring different things that they can be doing. And in this case, he's not enjoying an activity with another child from the book. It's his grandmother, but again, I think you have those inner cross-generational interests that kind of all bring us back together, and you can find some commonality in and spend time with one another.
Yeah, again, it's a breakdown of what you would expect, right? The norm is that would be a girl spending time in the garden, at least, again, going back to where a lot of my generation would think. And the boy would be off, with the grandfather, rounding up rabbits for dinner or something. So, right, again, it's a breakdown of the norm. And it's an interesting selection. So how did you develop the grandmother-grandson relationship to be so strong at that age?
So, in all honesty, my nephew is incredibly close with my mother. They just have been from the beginning. If you ask me, she's the greatest person on the earth. So I totally understand his infatuation with her. And so I think, again, we kind of drew from real life experiences and then, taking a little bit of creative freedom to add in some other pieces that we wanted to introduce. And so, yes, I think he's, just as close. When I say just as close with, my stepdad, I'm not sure that's exactly the truth, but he has great relationships. Honestly, he's a great kid. He's very likable. It's hard not to just getting captured in his essence. But he does just share that special bond. And I think, when you just have two kindred souls who somehow mesh and connect, that just happens. And, that doesn't always have to be someone who looks or is like you. And in this case, that's exactly their relationship.
Right. No, I agree. I think, and again, it also turns on what's, what may be normal for 60% of the people may not exist in your family. And so you can still draw on your experiences, right? Because everybody's experience is going to be a little bit different, at least I think. But that was an interesting one. They're all interesting. Which of all that you've done is your favorite of the illustration pairs?
That's a hard question. I feel like we get questions about, what's our favorite writing piece that we've done, because we have, published other things outside of our children's books and whatnot. And even though I think the whole essence of the book, like I said, I dedicated it to my niece and nephew, but one of the other ones that I think constantly kind of is in the forefront of conversations is between Sam and Idris. And again, that goes back to playing off of some different belief systems. And, in this one, you can see that Sam is crying and Idris is there. One, they enjoy eating lollipops together. And so Idris is trying to comfort Sam, but on the previous page where we kind of talk about their interests, we say something along the lines of, Sam cries sometimes when he is sad. And, that is trying to say that it is okay for boys, men, etc. Everybody has emotions, and it is okay to freely express those. But that one definitely seems to be one that always sparks something in people. It's really that like outward emotion piece. We have the, stay-at-home dad piece or the fashion designer, but there's something really rooted in our societal structure about men and emotions. And it's just not healthy. And we see that, every year as the suicide rates increase and the mental health pieces in this country increase. And so I think for me, that one is probably a real like take home message for a lot of the book.
Yeah, again, this is a very compelling set of illustrations and words. Big boys don't cry, right? Especially in 50 years ago, and allowing children to show their emotions, whether they're a boy or a girl, I think is very critical to maturing. Right?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's also standing out to me in this conversation is that, so first of all, major kudos to our amazing illustrator, Crystal Baldwin, who really took our work and like turned them into these beautiful illustrations to tell our story and to bring the messages to light. The other thing, going back to the trivia question about how many children's books represent people of color, I think is also incredibly an important point to raise, because in children's book landscape, there are amazing authors who we are really lucky enough to like share the space with, who do incredible work to feature children of color and to feature other elements of diversity too. But there's clearly a lot of opportunities for people to do more, to show visual representations of diversity, whether we're talking about race or ethnicity or religion, or abilities. There are all kinds of wonderful opportunities, and I think that's incredibly important too to point out about the book. Right. I think that's really one of the things that really sets us apart too. When the children are coming together, whether we're talking about Santi and his grandmother, where we have a mixed race family, or we're talking about children of different backgrounds, being able to come together and embrace each other and love each other, and find common connection through conflict. Right? Like that is an important message. And there's a lot of subtleties in our book. And so glad that you're picking up on a lot of them. There's a lot of woven into each of the pieces that we don't necessarily call out. And so if you ask us, there's lots of different things about ourselves personally that we put into the book. We don't have a picture of this tonight, but like my dog is in the book. You would never know that. I'll tell you that, but there's a lot of us really tied into these stories, and so it was a really great put hidden to it.
Yeah, and your experiences and your backgrounds and you should be in those. I mean, that's what's important when you write. You've got to be able to translate you as part of what you're writing. That's what puts the passion in. I want to check with Susan, see if we have a winner on the question. Well, we should do.
We have a winner. Congratulations. Okay. Marilyn Kopaj came up with the correct answer that Keiko means happy. So congratulations. And of course, right after Marilyn did, everybody else came in with it, Michelle and Nancy. But Marilyn was the first. So you win, Marilyn. Congratulations.
Wow, we have a bunch of new winners tonight. That's good. So I'm going to read the third one or the final question of the night, and we've got a couple of more sets of pains to talk about. So the final question, again, multiple choice, A, B, C, or D, is how many youth under the age of 20 are living with type 1 diabetes in the United States today? And the choices are A, 22 million, B, 2 million, C, 200,000, and D, 2,000. Again, how many youths under the age of 20 are living with type 1 diabetes in the United States? A, 22 million, B, 2 million, C, 200,000, or D, 2,000. Now, there's two sets of pains that I'd like to talk about. Again, I think some of it speaks to how it relates to my growing up, and then you can tell how you came to it. And the other speaks to overcoming disabilities. And the first the first two would be Maxine and Julio, right? And here, I can't imagine that any young father in my time period of having children who would have a boy that didn't want to be a baseball, football, basketball, soccer player. And if they came home and told me they aspired to be the next Nureyev, wouldn't probably get thrown down the steps, right? So, and here we have a young boy whose aspiration is to be a world-renowned ballet dancer, and he likes to play with race cars. And I want to, before I get you guys talk, I want to tell something I've been meaning to say to the audience for the last 15 minutes. Don't read these once. You have to study the words with the illustrations to really get the point. It's not a fast flip. So anyway, tell us about Maxine and Julio.
Well, I think we can start by talking about the names. I think that the names of the characters are incredibly important because we pick names that aren't typically represented in books. So that it starts there, right? And then it goes into, again, breaking some stereotypes about what we expect maybe children to engage in terms of career choice and what they like to do. And I do think that was intentional that we have Julio who wants to be a ballet dancer. And then it's okay that Julio still likes to play with race cars. One doesn't necessarily contradict another. You can still love race cars, which might be what somebody might expect Julio to do, but it's not about meeting someone's expectations. It's about Julio and Maxine doing what they love. That's it.
Right. Great.
And, one of the inspirations or thoughts about that, is when we look at, professional, I guess, dancing is a sport. I was a soccer player, so I try not to be too biased to what each thing is. But, whatever your professional career is, if you will, when we look at, our men's gymnastics team in the Olympics, or I don't know if they're real, what the equivalent of that would be for dancing. But, I feel like for most of those, the expectation is you can join those after you've kind of become secure, if you will, from a societal standpoint of who you are. But we know that it takes years of dedication and mastery to really be great. So when have you heard of the last time that the United States won in men's gymnastics? And I think a lot of that comes from the lack of us allowing young boys to just explore the world and really become great at something, because we're trying to put them into a box. And I think that was kind of the drive behind at least one of our male characters taking on dancing, if you will, or whatever you would consider a typical female activity.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's really, what's typical, and there are, dancers are phenomenal. They're, talk about being in shape. A ballet dancer is probably off the charts in shape. Better shape than some of the football and baseball players, but yes. Maybe not as physically strong, but really. But breaking down the norms, it's breaking down the expectation of the parent out of the box, right? Right at the start, right? Because again, you pick up that baby boy or you pick up that baby girl, and the first thing you think is, here's my son, the next middle linebacker from Ohio State, right? And he comes home and says, I want to dance, right? very different. So you've got to be
Or
prepared for
even
that.
before
Yeah.
you're holding the baby. I mean, if you want to talk about the stores and the way they're set up for how we buy things for even
Right.
babies, right? Like newborns, there are these frilly little tutu outfits for the baby girls, and these tough overalls and trucks on the front of the shirt. So I mean, it starts way before they even get a sense of what the room they live in, the color is, because they can't even see past the crib walls, if you will, and so it starts, yes, very young before
I think
they
that's a
even get a
great.
sense.
I think that's a great point, because what you're really saying is that it's so conditioned that if my son or daughter chooses a different path, then I have to learn to accept it rather than accepting it at the very start, right? And being made aware that that's a strong a possibility, maybe not a strong possibility.
Anything's
Right?
possible. Right.
Anything's possible.
Anything.
That's the point. That's that is the point. So I tell you this, as I said, when you read it, you got to read it slowly. You got to go over it and think about it. Think about it. I want the audience and the people who read the book to not just go through it once, but go back and think about what these mean and how they impact a lot of things going on in your life. We're going to talk about thriving and living with disabilities, right? And I was on the board of both Linden Resources and Melwood Industries, and had constituents with all sorts of disability. And in talking to them, the number one thing that always came across that they were proud of whenever they had a job or employment is that they were then thought of as a person, right? When you think about what I just said in the context of your book, you got to go back much earlier, right? And how do we do that?
And so here's the thing for us, the characters that you're calling out for this example, we don't always call things out. Like, if we have a character with a disability that you could see for a context clue, like maybe there's a wheelchair, right? We don't call out that child has a wheelchair. It's already something that anyone can see. But what we're calling out is that this child also loves to play basketball. So
Right.
that is what we call attention to. This is an example of Dakota. Dakota loves to tell jokes. Dakota wants to be an author. If you look closely at the image, Dakota is using their hands in order to read that book. And it's on the next page that we have more of a context clue. But again, it's like, if it's not about calling those things out and making someone feel like there's another person, like othering them. It's really about embracing the things, the gifts that we all have. Here, Leroy and Kiko love to play basketball together, right? There's no limitations here. These are two happy children.
Right. It's great. It's wonderful. Let's check in with Susan and see if we have a winner for the final question.
We do have a winner.
Yes, we do.
Michelle D'Amato was the first one, quickly followed by Marilyn and Nancy. So congratulations, Michelle. The correct answer was 200,000. 200,000 youth under the age of 20 are living with type 1 diabetes. Thank you for
It sounds
playing.
like it was very competitive out there tonight.
It was very competitive.
So
You had a quick
Very good.
on the draw.
you have to be. Very good. So what message do you want to leave our viewers and your readers with as we wrap up?
I think we know that these are pushing some deep rooted ideals, and that can make any of us feel uncomfortable sometimes when we are so used to living in the norm, and those things come easy to us. But the norm for one person is not the norm for everybody. And so I think it's really just having an open heart and an open mind to love and accept people the way they are. And I think, one of the things that we talked about is, trying to set your expectations early to having those things be open instead of having to open them up later. And I think that, can be seen with members of the LGBTQ community who feel like they have to come out because this is a whole thing, because we've set these expectations or norms, where no one would have to come out about anything that they love to do, who they are, what they want to be, if we didn't have these expectations in the first place. And so I really think just opening your heart and minds to allowing people to be who they truly are is really going to benefit everybody in the end.
I couldn't agree with you more. And you, Diana?
And I think that, piggybacking off the point that these can be challenging things to think through, particularly when we've been taught them and they've been passed on from generation to generation for a really long time, to present these conversation starters in a children's book that we say is written for 4 to 6 year olds, but we also say it's really for a person of any age. We mean that, because to have this conversation and to flip those pages and meet these individuals and really truly fall in love with them about all the wonderful things that are buried in the character description and the images is the kind of thing that we hope. We hope that the dialogue changes. We hope the narrative changes, that we want to encourage more people to write their story and to contribute to the diversity in representation and images and descriptions and life stories and experiences in children's literature in particular. And we're really honored to be a part of that space.
Great. And, you guys have just been tremendous guests. The passion and the zeal you feel for this topic just comes right through. And as I said, I've from the moment I read that book and went back and reread it, I've been telling people this is a book and this was a show that would be important for them. And it was great having you on. Keep up the great work. It's terrific path. And, we've got to let everyone, be themselves and let them know it's good to be you, right? So
yeah, and Susan shared the picture a few times, but we have written a second children's book, which is entitled It's Great to Be Loved, and it has a very similar essence of It's Great to Be You, except that one explores a little bit more of family dynamics, if you will, on kind of breaking that norm of who can love us and what a normal family unit might look like. And we've also added in some bonus content in the end to further allow for an exploration of different cultures and ethnicities and identities, of really grasping and trying to ensure that someone feels themselves when they read this book.
So please send that one to me so we can do a double review in the newspaper of both books. And tell our viewers, where can they get the book?
So both of them are available on Amazon, which is, your kind of traditional retailer. We pre-COVID used to do a whole bunch of events in the DC metro area, but until then we're also selling on Etsy. So both ways are a great way to get the book. I don't know if there's anything else to add. I think if you do it through Etsy, you get, an autograph or personalized message, where if you do it through Amazon, you just get the book. So, whatever you would like for the special person that you're trying to send it to, you can get it either way.
I know some of the viewers out there we've done children's books in the past, and they like the aspect that it was could be uniquely sent to with their children or grandchild's name or niece or nephew's name. It's a great aspect.
So then you can find us on Etsy. It's just like our business name, Wesky and Company. You'll find us on Etsy, or if you type in the book. And a little tip for finding it on Amazon as well, you should put in the title and at least one of our names to kind of help bring that search up, because we are independently published.
Great. Well, thank you once again for coming on, and I appreciate it. It was well done. And
awesome. Yes.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Anytime. Yeah. Oh, stay in touch. And Susan, in 2 weeks, which would be February 23rd, we will have an edition of Reading and Writing and Ralph that is going to be turning the tables. And Stuart McCusker, who has written a book, Today's Horoscope, will be interviewing me about my novel 512, which is an historical fiction about the life of Babe Ruth and baseball in general. So, and it's not just for sports fans, because there's a lot of interesting stories in the Babe Ruth fiction, most of which are true and some of which are not. But it'll be a very interesting night.
Terrific. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Ralph, and thank you, Diana and Courtney, for a wonderful conversation. And that's a beautiful book. I am certainly going to recommend it to my nieces and nephews for their children. So appreciate your time coming on here. Ralph, we'll see you in 2 weeks with Stuart. Looking forward to
2
that.
weeks. Yes, he is.
Viewers, please tune in here tomorrow night. Dr. Lauren Fisher will be here for Wellness Wednesday, and her guest is CJ Westby of Foundation Fitness in Delray. And that's going to be a great show. And then Thursday night, we have Make It Alexandria, and Elisa Kovac welcomes Maritza Maxwell of Hatch, who makes some really interesting, beautiful pieces of art that are also functional. So be sure you tune in to that. And then whatever you do, until then, and even after then, remember to be the good news in someone's life.